to lead the police department in Pensacola, Florida. Throughout his career, Trigg has held a variety of leadership and patrol roles within GRPD, including Police Chief of the South Service Area, Police Lieutenant in Internal Affairs and Watch Command, Police Sergeant in Patrol, Acting Patrol Sergeant, Community Policing Officer, Patrol Officer, and Enforcement Officer. If you'd like to watch the swearing-in ceremony, a recording is available on the city's YouTube channel. Construction is now underway on the next phase of the Grand River Restoration Project. Beginning July 1, crews started in-river work to remove 4 low-head dams between Bridge Street and Fulton Street bridges, an important step toward restoring the historic rapids in downtown Grand Rapids. Over the next 2 years, the dams will be replaced with natural river features like boulder arches, riffles, and habitat boulders designed to improve fish passage, restore habitats, and make the river safer. The project is also expected to expand public access to the river and create new recreation opportunities. Construction is expected to continue through the end of 2027. High school and college-age students can take advantage of free college and career resources this summer through Studio Days at MLK, held every Wednesday and Thursday through August 20 at the Our Community's Children's Student Success Center inside the Martin Luther King Jr. Park building. Studio Days offers one-on-one support with college applications, financial aid, scholarships, career exploration, and job readiness. Students can also connect with mentors, attend workshops, and receive guidance on planning for life after high school. Grand Rapids residents now have a new way to connect with the city's Office of Oversight and Public Accountability. The office has launched an online portal where community members can submit complaints, compliments, and requests related to city services and public safety and oversight. The new system is designed to make it easier for residents to share concerns, recognize positive interactions with city employees, and ask questions and track the status of their submissions. City leaders say the portal is another step toward improving transparency, accountability, and communication between local government and the community. Residents can access the new portal through the city's website. Grand Rapids will once again welcome hundreds of adaptive athletes from across the country as it hosts the Hartford Nationals, the nation's largest adaptive sports championship from July 10 through 16. More than 400 athletes will compete in events including archery, para-powerlifting, para-triathlon, swimming, track and field, shooting, and wheelchair tennis at venues throughout the city. Hosted by the West Michigan Sports Commission and Mary Freebread Wheelchair and Adaptive Sports, the championship showcases elite athletes with physical disabilities, visual impairments, and intellectual disabilities. Most competitions are free and open to the public, and organizers encourage community members to attend and cheer on the athletes throughout the week. We've gone through some hot days, Grand Rapids, but there are more ahead. Nowhere you can find relief from the heat. Cooling centers are available through the city at locations including public libraries, community centers, and nonprofit organizations, offering air-conditioned spaces, drinking water, and a safe place to cool off during periods of extreme heat. A full list of cooling center locations and hours is available through the Grand Rapids Coalition to End Homelessness and by calling Michigan 211. The Grand Rapids Public Schools Board of Education has approved the sale of the former Stocking Elementary School building to Commonwealth Development Corporation for a mixed-income housing development. The decision differed from the district's administration's recommendation, which had favored a proposal from the West Grand Neighborhood Association. Board members cited Commonwealth's experience with affordable housing development and confidence in the project's long-term viability. The redevelopment is expected to transform the vacant school into new housing while preserving portions of the historic building. The sale is part of GRPS's broader effort to repurpose former school properties through its Reimagine GRPS initiative. Getting between downtown and uptown Grand Rapids is a little easier this summer thanks to a new free service, the Summer Shuttle Saturdays. Launched by Uptown GR, they provide free rides every Saturday through August 8, connecting downtown with Uptown's 4 business districts, East Town, East Hills, East Fulton, and Wealthy Street. The shuttle runs continuously from 4 to 11 p.m., and organizers say the pilot program is designed to improve mobility while encouraging people to experience all that Grand Rapids has to offer. That's it for city updates. For more hyper-local news from across Grand Rapids, visit the Rapidian at therapidian.org and be sure to subscribe to our free weekly newsletter, The Current, so you never miss a beat. When we come back from the break, we'll be joined by Mayor David LaGrand and Bill Kirk from DGRI.
For over 30 years after humble beginnings as a public access TV station, the Community Media Center has grown to be an active, multi-platform media and technology assistance organization, encouraging and enabling our community to push their creative boundaries. We power a variety of resources, including a music-centered community radio station, WYCE, a community venue with stage and screen at Wealthy Theater, citizen-driven journalism with the Rapidian, a web development team empowering local nonprofits, an education department that trains and broadens students' minds, and a free speech public access television studio, GRTV, where it all began. By introducing audiences to new voices and ideas, we enhance community engagement and create connections between artists and audiences, enriching our city's cultural offerings. We empower and collaborate with platforms and resources accessible to all and used by all. Every free democratic society depends on media, accessible to the community and uncensored by government. The Community Media Center continues this work for the media landscape of today and tomorrow. These platforms and services empower our neighbors to tell their stories and explore the richness of culture that Grand Rapids has to offer. Connect, discover, learn, create, and share. The Grand Rapids Community Media Center.
Welcome back to City Connection. I'm your host, Allison Donahue, joined here today by Mayor David LaGrand and DGRI Communications Director Bill Kirk. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
To kick us off, we haven't had Downtown Grand Rapids Inc. on the show in a while. Yeah. For the viewers at home who aren't aware of the work that you all do there, what is DGRI and how does it fit into the goings-on here in Grand Rapids?
Yeah, definitely. So our sort of industry term is a downtown management organization. We're publicly funded through property tax dollars collected in the downtown district, and we are required by state law to put those funds back into the downtown through a variety of projects and implementations. That can look like infrastructure as basic as street and sewers, or things as fun as exciting as World of Winter. So the real goal for what we do is to make downtown Grand Rapids a place where people want to be, where people want to live, make it a place that's pleasant to work. So it's called placemaking in general is the term that's used a lot. But so and our budget goes through a board of directors that the mayor sits on and ultimately is approved by the city commission. But we just try to make downtown a place where everyone feels welcome and wants to come back.
How does that function differently than like a corridor improvement?
So I was just going to go there. So historically, back when the earth was young, we started downtown development authorities and downtown specific things. This was sort of maybe 80s response to persistent urban blight. So just to give the really broad view, back when the world was young, downtowns were vibrant, cities were vibrant, people liked cities. Then we had the disinvestment in the cities that largely happened in the 50s, a lot of white flight, and suburbs get created. Eisenhower makes the interstate, and all of a sudden everyone decides they want to live on 5 acres of land and mow their lawn all day. So there was this conversation about like, okay, so how do we get the city center to look vibrant? And downtown Grand Rapids is just one example of lots of every big city I know of has a mechanism like this to focus, reinvest money in the downtown corridor. Now, fast forward to the 2000s, and a lot of neighborhoods said, what are we, chopped liver? Like, why can't we have this? Why can't we have nice things too? And so out of that was born the conversation about neighborhood associations getting things like corridor improvement districts and bids to do in neighborhoods kind of what we did in downtown. Now, the final exciting step is that we're all starting to have this energized conversation about seeing downtown not just as a downtown, but as one of many neighborhoods. So it's our biggest neighborhood in terms of like how many people work there, and geographically it's probably one of our biggest neighborhoods. But it's playing very much off the same thematic question. So those corridor improvement districts are having the same question of like, how can we do vibrant retail? How can we make our streets look good? How can we have things be safe? And so downtowns are a couple generations ahead of that conversation, and because they have so many bigger buildings, they have a bigger budget, and so they're the biggest example of that. But they're an idea that's been replicated. But now to put it in it's sort of come full circle, because as Bill said, when I ran Four Friends Coffee House back in the 90s with friends, there were like 3 people who lived downtown that I knew of. It was like, they'd be like, oh, you know that building down in Monroe Mall? Well, turns out there's 3 condos above it. And you're like, oh, that's weird, I didn't know that. So there'd be a few like, early adopters who bravely lived downtown and were fighting the trends. Well, now there are thousands of people living downtown. We've got goals to have thousands more live downtown. We've got major office to housing conversions going on. And that feels exciting to me, because it really does bring us to the place where downtown is one of our cool, neat neighborhoods, but not the only cool, neat neighborhood. So I think it's exciting.
Yeah, making downtown a neighborhood was one of the goals set in the Grand Rapids Forward Plan and made in 2015. I'd like to talk a little bit more about that plan.
Yeah.
What is the Grand Rapids Forward Plan, and how did it come to be?
Yeah, so I'm sure a lot of viewers are aware that there's a lot of different master planning that goes on within city government. So that can be a master plan for the park system, or a master plan for the whole city, like that was recently completed. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was a master plan for downtown specifically, and that hadn't been updated in a while. So GR Forward was started in about 2013 to update that plan, kind of reflect new development and new context to downtown, and try to cast a vision for what downtown could be over the next 10 years, dating back to 2015. And as you mentioned, one of the goals was building a more of a neighborhood downtown. But the necessity for that effort was just that so much context had changed since the last time a plan had been done. So we took the opportunity to go out and engage with as many people as we could, and see what people wanted their downtown to look like over the next 10, 20 years.
Yeah, I believe I saw like 4,400 folks were included in that, creating that plan. We are 10 years and some change into the future now. I have the goals in front of me here. One of the goals was restoring the river and creating, connecting people through the river. Creating a true downtown neighborhood that's home to a diverse population. Implementing a 21st century mobility strategy, and expanding job opportunities and continued vitality of the local economy. How do you feel like we're doing today?
I mean, I feel like we're doing great. For every single one of those, I can tell you, wow, we've got to do this, 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 and this. So I think we know what our next steps are, but like, it's just, you'd have to really, really have not been paying much attention to not have seen the transformational work being done on the river, and it's integrated. So like when the museum decides they're going to do something, well, they've got a whole plan to bring people actually physically down to the river and make it a classroom. Well, that's part of the river, and then the next 50 yards along, there's something else going on, and so we really. Actually, the Gerald Ford Museum, Abenawan Park area is sort of an early adopter of this, the idea of sort of having the river step up rather than having barrier walls. Because you can't, unless you're, a bungee jumper, you don't want to go off of jump off a 25-foot wall to get to the river. So to get to the river, instead of doing barrier walls, you think of it as a basin. And then if the river rises and falls, you can always still get to it. So that's happened, and that's exciting. That being said, I keep saying the next thing we got to do, if we really want to engage people with the river, is not show them the river and hope someone's going to spend all afternoon looking at the river, because it's not that interesting. Like talking to you is much more interesting than watching the river. People like being around people. But so my vision or my challenge on this is like what I want GR River to look like, the Grand River to look like in GR is a lot like the Charles River in Boston. Right now there are 200 people on the Charles, making me wish I knew how to scull. Like there are people all over that river. Now to make that happen, you have to have boathouses, to put it simply. You need a lot of other stuff. What is a scull?
Yeah.
It's the really fast boat you see pulling like this with either 8 people and they got a coxswain in the front, or there's 4-person sculls. There's even 1-person sculls. So I've actually got the kayak version of that. It goes insanely fast, and I really want to use it on the river. But to do that, I need a boathouse. I'm not just going to. I can't teleport there. So if you look at rivers, where there's real integration and use of the river, you need facilities around that will support that. So, and then the other part of that is I was in Genoa a while ago, and their entire riverfront's like an open water bar. It's just bar after bar after bar after bar, and it's just party time down on the river. Well, to get that going is going to take some thought and some work and some investment in making sure that those businesses have what they need to succeed. So those are for activation. Presenting the river like it's a moving picture is not going to be enough. We have to do that next level, but we can't do it until we've done some of the foundational stuff that we're doing right now. So right now I sort of feel like we've laid the table for the next step. Similarly, Bill can probably has the numbers in his head about how many people are downtown. But we are laying the table for the next step. So 111 Lion is rented now, I think.
They're
right
leasing now.
And right next, a block away, there's another conversion, a downtown office conversion going on. Then everybody knows there's the conversation about the 3 towers. Whole lot of people living on the river there. So there are developments I can think of offhand that when they come to fruition, and it's certainly good reason to think they will, give us thousands more people. And what I get excited about this, and I'm sorry to keep harping on this, but you talked about multimodal transportation. Again, I not at all in any circumstance a fan of one-way streets. I think they're a bad idea almost everywhere. So we have a lot of really suboptimal streets downtown that we really, I think, as soon as we can, need to transition to 2-way streets. We did it during COVID. No, everything was fine. It didn't trigger the zombie apocalypse. So I think we need to go back to that. So Lion and Fountain, there's no reason those streets shouldn't be 2-way, as far as I can see. But also our major corridor, I don't want to get too granular on this, but that integrates then with, for me, the big door prize is everyone living in this downtown neighborhood, I said this at a ribbon cutting the other week, it was like, you stand at 111 Lion and you pivot, and you can see thousands of jobs. Like if you worked in the courthouse, you could live there and walk to work. You could, if you worked at Warner Norcross and Judd, you could walk to work. If you worked at that restaurant, that coffee house, you could. So there are jobs all over the place downtown. Well, if people can walk to their job and actually eliminate a car, if they can become a 1-car family instead of a 2-car family, they save $10,000 a year, which means downtown housing is potentially way more affordable than housing in Ada and Cascade, because you peel off that car expense, which turns out to give you $800 a month to put into housing. So it's really important when we talk about what's affordable and what's not affordable. The real basket is housing plus transportation. It's not the sticker price of the housing itself. And so downtown, I think, has the potential to provide us with some of us our most affordable and most fun housing. I like walking places way more than I like driving places, and I like biking places way more often than I like driving places. I drive when I have to, but.
Right.
So downtown Grand Rapids has shifted into more of a neighborhood over the last decade. Do you know how many people have moved into downtown?
Yeah, so when the plan was adopted, there were about 5,000 people living downtown, give or take. There's over 7,000 now. The amount of units we had downtown back then was about 3,000. We're up to about 5,000. So the original goal in the plan was, getting up to 10 to 12,000 people downtown, which we're on track for, I think, with a lot of the developments that the mayor mentioned. And when you get that critical mass of people downtown, amenities tend to follow, retail tends to follow. So we're excited about that growth. One of the things that's changed a lot in the last 10 years is the development right around the edges of downtown. So right across the street here, the Verdant development there, I mean, that's technically outside of our little jurisdiction downtown, but that's housing that's right on the edge of downtown, and that's happening kind of all over the periphery, which is great. So when you put more people in a place, it tends to become more interesting, like the mayor's saying. And part of that is that public space activation with the Grand River Greenway, the outdoor spaces along the river, as well as the other park development that we're seeing. So the hope is with the plan update that we're going to be getting into is we can build on the success from that original plan, engage some of those new people that are here that weren't here 10 years ago. People bringing in fresh ideas is always great, with fresh eyes and new context. So it's an exciting time. I think we're at continuing the momentum is our goal at this point.
And I think one of the things that's worth pointing out, this is an odd accident of history, but I think COVID actually helped with some of this. Because before COVID, if you had asked, hey, can we line Monroe Mall with a bunch of outdoor seating that will take over a lane, people would have been like, oh my God, that'd be terrible. And now everyone's like, eating outside in the summer is awesome. So I was just on Monroe Mall today, and there are just table after table after table in front of restaurants. Well, all the barriers, all the resistance to that kind of broke down during COVID because we wanted to socially isolate, but we still wanted to go out to eat. But now that COVID's behind us, I hope, all those good ideas stayed. So that wasn't anything that was in a plan. That just happened to us. But it turned into something that really gave us lots of new ideas.
Could you ever see that street turning into a pedestrian-only street?
I started Four Friends when it was a pedestrian-only street, and we spent a lot of money converting it away from that.
Okay.
I think so. I'm not at all car hostile. I think that the ability to get your car to something if you really have to is very very valuable. So my intuition is that it's functionally a one-lane, one-way, very slow, not dangerous for pedestrians, not dangerous for cyclists street right now. To my eyes, it kind of looks perfect right now. So, never say never, but boy, it ticks all the boxes I want. Lots of bustling people, pedestrians feel safe, lots of activity going on. If you're in Rosa Parks Circle and you're doing the samba dances or whatever they do on Tuesday night, every time I go by Rosa Parks Circle in the summer, I'm like, wow, there are 2,000 people dancing. That's kind of cool. Right?
Yeah.
Well, those people don't feel scared to go across the street to the Thai restaurant because nobody's driving up that street at more than 10 miles an hour. So it's as close. So what would you get from it, right? We've already got sidewalks, we've already got tons of pedestrians. So by actually removing cars, I think you might make it feel less welcoming. And at the end of the day, cities are for people. You want people to feel welcome, you want them to feel like they can do what they want to do. And even if they don't need a car, the ability to use a car in that situation probably psychologically matters. That's my intuition. I don't know if...
Well, and there's flexibility there. We, not just DGRI, but other event producers, at different times throughout the year, will close down sections of Monroe Center to make it just kind of a pedestrian place. I'm dating myself now, too. I remember when Blues on the Mall was actually on the mall, and it wasn't a street. So that's one of the things, though, that I think, getting back to the COVID, some of the COVID interventions too, we like to pilot things and see how they work, and things that work well, we can try to make more permanent. So having that flexibility is nice to have downtown. So I can't speak for whether or not that'll ever be, not a car street or whatever, but I do like the fact that we have the flexibility now to sometimes make it pedestrian only.
We've looked back at the goals set 10 years ago and how we're going to continue those going forward. For folks that want to get involved, will there be opportunity for community input in this new rendition of the.
Absolutely, yeah. So we just did a sort of a public kickoff of this update near the end of June. Did a couple community events, or actually just kind of tagged along with a couple community events. Reading in the Park, we did one of those, and a couple others. So we've got some surveys that happen and some interactions that can happen at those events. We'll be doing those throughout the summer into the fall, and really throughout the whole plan process. We do have a website, corepriorities.com. That you can go on there and take a survey, a digital survey, so anyone can participate from anywhere. But we definitely want to be engaging with as many, just anybody from residents to workers to business owners, visitors, really anybody that has a stake in downtown, which in our opinion is everybody. So yeah, we want as much input as we can get for people to let us know what they're looking for in the future downtown.
And that being said, you can always come to City Commission and talk to us at
Yep.
City Commission nights, right? So if you don't know how to find a way to say something, you can always come up public comment.
Yep.
One of my friends who lives in the Plaza Towers came down to a City Commission and said, "Why aren't you guys shoveling the sidewalks on the bridge?" And he was absolutely right. Like that was a city thing. We should have been shoveling them. I actually walked across them and I was like, man, there are a lot of people. I've seen a lot of footprints on this bridge. There are people crossing. There's no snow removal. So like keeping those visions of
Yeah.
like how downtown can be better, you can always come to City Commission and talk to us about it, because good ideas are good ideas.
Yep.
Yeah, you can't get more direct than standing right there and
Right.
asking for help. Of the goals set, where do you feel like we are the strongest currently, and what goal do you think is going to need a little bit extra work in this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, so goal 5 was all about public space activation and reinvesting in our public spaces. I think we've made a lot of progress there. One of the sort of sub goals in that section was activating the events calendar year round. If you rewind back to 2015, there were certainly quite a few events, but the calendar was much spottier. There would be these dead spaces in the fall and the winter time. So we were able to do some activations with things like World of Winter. A lot of great creative event producers came out of the woodwork to activate the event calendar. So that's really good to see that pretty much any time downtown you can find something to do, a public outdoor event generally. So a lot of progress there, a lot of investment in those public spaces where those events take place. The mayor mentioned a lot of the park space and open space development along the Grand River, which has been fantastic. Places like Lion Square, the amphitheater now has a couple acres of park space there. So that's been a really, I think the public space activation, I think that goal, we really did a great job there. As I mentioned before, I think there's still work to be done in growing the residential population downtown. And then the 4th goal was about local economic vitality. We've been over the years kind of tweaking different grant programs that we have, trying to help businesses get started downtown, trying to fill vacant storefronts. So over the years we've had some success there. That kind of ebbs and flows. Certainly COVID had a big impact on retail. Now we're at a place where we're trying to tune our grant programs to be more in line with what other organizations are doing as well. There's a lot of organizations downtown giving economic support to businesses. So rather than the Chamber of Commerce doing this and GROW doing that and Downtown Grand Rapids Inc. doing this, we're all talking to each other now and trying to complement the resources that are being distributed. So I think there's still work to do there. And then on the mobility side, the mayor mentioned things like our one-way streets downtown, certainly our public transportation options. We've added micromobility, but we've had to reduce some service in other places as a city. So I think there's progress to be made there. The good news is, I think more people are paying attention. I think different parties that needed to be talking to each other 10 years ago that weren't are now. So if I had to pick a couple spots where I'd love to see some progress, it would be on the mobility front, on the small business and local business front, and getting more people to live downtown as well.
Great. It is, thanks for taking my questions, but it's time now for us to take another break. And when we return, we'll be answering questions from viewers like you. To take part in the conversation, send in a question to cityconnection@grcmc.org or submit a question through the Rapidian's Instagram story @the Rapidian.
Why do local businesses spend their marketing dollars with Community Media Center? Because it's more than just passive advertising. It is an investment in the community that is eager to invest in you. The Community Media Center makes Grand Rapids vital. We collaborate with local businesses and support events in West Michigan. Inclusive. We amplify local voices that tell the diverse and ever-changing stories of our community. Creative. We encourage artists to showcase and expand their talents and to shape the look and sound of Grand Rapids. Marketing with the CMC will let our community know who you are and increase brand recognition for your business. At the end of the day, we are a resource that will keep you connected to the community. Share your message with diverse audiences by underwriting with WYCE, GRTV, Wealthy Theater, and the Rapidian. Join us in building a stronger community through media. Contact us at marketing@grcmc.org.
Welcome back to City Connection. It's July 6, 2026, and we're joined here by Mayor David LaGrand and DGRI Communications Director Bill Kirk. During this part of the show, we'll be taking questions from viewers. Starting with a question from a Redditor. The city is growing. With the addition of the amphitheater and the possibility of a soccer stadium, it would seem like a more robust public transportation system would be in order. What is the city's plan to fill this need and possibility? It exists now, that soccer stadium.
That's right.
If you
Yeah.
come on down to the west side, but
Yeah, it'd be a real shame if they took all those girders down. I think it's probably too late. Yeah, so there's public transportation is a fascinating conversation. One of the things that I think is always worth pointing out is in politics and in public policy, people have a tendency to stay with the model that they're comfortable with and that worked yesterday. And I think that a lot of our public transit thinking is really kind of stuck in the 50s. And the idea, we've sort of been doing the same thing in public transit that we've done since the 50s. When along the way, Uber has happened. San Francisco has driverless cars. Driverless cars really seem to be coming to urban core. Now, in Grand Rapids, we've done some e-bikes are something that I think is going to have huge potential to change how people get around. That's how I got here. But so I think that the first thing we ought to do is make sure we're really having conversations that draw in those conversations about what are all the resources that are available to people. So who your transit is for and what it's doing. Like if you're trying to get people to the soccer stadium, for example, well, if it turns out that, I'm just going to make these numbers up, let's say average 6,000 people come to a game, 3,000 of them come from bars and they all like marching to the soccer stadium, well then you don't really have to plan on parking for those 3,000 people because they all figured out how to get to their parking by the bar and they're walking down to the soccer stadium, right? And if the soccer stadium, if 1,500 of them are coming from Sparta, well they're not really part of the public transportation conversation either. But then if a bunch of them can either walk or bike and are walking or biking, you may not have as big a driver as you suspect you have there. So one of the things that just happened with the amphitheater, for example, when it opened, the weekend it opened, we had what we called the trifecta. We had a sold-out event at DeVos, we had a sold-out event down at Van Andel, and then we had a sold-out event at the amphitheater. And our parking ramps weren't full. Well, for the 2 years leading up to that, people were like, what about parking? Will there be enough parking? Oh my gosh, will there be enough parking? And it, like, all of that conversation just sort of stopped after that first concert because the proof of concept was there. Like, it worked. It worked for plenty of people. And like, I walked with my 83-year-old grandmother down to the amphitheater. Like, that's how we got down there. It wasn't that hard. Not grandmother, mother. But there are people get creative about how they do these things, and so we don't want to be too monolithic. Now, that being said, if I can get a little more granular on this, one of the things that I'm hopeful about, we just had a reimagining of the Dash buses. Now, imagine a world in which the Dash bus came once an hour. I would never use it because I don't want to stand on a street corner and get frostbite in February waiting for the Dash bus, nor do I want to cut my meeting short. So I'm like, I'm sorry, this is a really important conversation, but the one time I can make the Dash is now and I have to leave, right? So frequency of circulation matters a lot in terms of whether people will actually use it. So I could use it to do about half of my route to work. But I'm not going to do that if it doesn't come very often, right? So I could walk past the thing. Well, if it comes every 6 minutes, I could be like, I'm getting tired. My feet are wet. It's going to be the most I'm going to have to wait is 6 minutes. Maybe I'll be lucky it'll be 2 minutes. That's a very different bus system than a bus system that comes every 15 minutes. So we simplified the route, and I had some people who said, the new route for the Dash, and this is the old new route, was zigzagged all over the place, and then how long you're on the bus. Like, if it takes me 8 minutes on a bus to get somewhere I could have walked myself in 6 minutes, I'm only taking that bus once, right? Like, it has to be able to beat my feet or I'm not going to do it. So so I don't know if you want to add to this, Bill, but like the Dash is sort of a core thing if we're talking downtown stuff.
Sure.
Like, the Dash is one of our core downtown transportation tools, but so is we did a free thing for Lime scooters and bikes 2 years ago now, and we got like density of use that was like Brooklyn levels. And the cool thing was after that promo free month, you stayed up at this new high level. So I personally, I'm sort of a micro-mobility optimist. I think that people who haven't tried e-bikes don't know what they're missing. So when I finally talked my wife Melissa into getting on one because we were going to go buy her a new bike. She's like, I don't want one of those stinking e-bikes. And so she tried a couple other bikes, and then she got on the e-bike. She's like, yep, okay, buying that one. And my chief of staff the other day was like, just texted me out of the blue. It's like, I get what you've been saying about e-bikes now because I finally tried one. Like, they're awesome. You can get places without being sweaty. You can get places faster, like and you don't have to take this whole car thing with you to go, a mile or a mile and a half. So I think that we're going to see more and more and more people adopting what's essentially new technology. And so I think when we talk about public transportation, I would love to see a situation where we could actually help people get e-bikes in the city because, again, you're taking away the need for a car. You're taking away huge amounts of expense, and then they can do whatever they want. And public transit is awesome, and I'm a lifelong advocate for it, but it always will be at a competitive disadvantage in some circumstances with some things that will be faster. Even really good public transportation systems don't always beat walking. They don't always beat taking an Uber. They don't always beat having your own car. And so making them efficient and making them meet people's needs is something we're never going to stop talking about. But it's fascinating, but it's not like there's an answer to this. There's 20 things to consider.
Yeah, this one's close to my heart. I used to work at the Rapid prior to my role at DGRI, so pretty familiar with the public transit landscape and the mayors on the Rapids board over there. So it is important for people to understand that there are things the city can do, and there are things that Downtown Grand Rapids Inc. can do, and then there are things that are within the purview of the Rapids. So great examples of what the city and DGRI partner on are things like the Dash and micromobility options, but the bus system itself is a separate entity. So for the reader's question, I think I would would say, as far as plans go, they did recently, the Rapid completed a comprehensive plan recently that's got some good ideas in it. One of the things that I think transportation systems in America always struggle with is investment. One of the primary ways that transit systems are funded is through the gas tax, which is kind of depending on the way you look at it, potentially a declining source of revenue. When you look at what cities were able to do back to the pandemic during COVID, there was more flexibility with funding sources during COVID for transit systems. So they could use pots of federal money that were typically reserved for building buildings and buying buses, and they could put that into service, just putting more service on the street, which gets to what the mayor was saying about having a bus come more frequently. So it's a difficult problem to solve. But in general, I think like a lot of these things, it requires more investment, and a lot of that is out of the hands of City Hall and/or Downtown Grand Rapids Inc. But yeah, it's definitely. I'm kind of an all of the above person. Let's have more micromobility options. Let's try to do more with things like the Dash, and let's also invest in our public transportation system.
I want to make sure we get through
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
questions
absolutely.
today. So I might, I know.
Yeah.
We're going to get through them.
Rapid fire, right?
Rapid fire. You recently received vast criticism for the amphitheater. I'm guessing you as the mayor. Why did you and Mark Washington grant a variance for them, but not for other venues like Frederick Meyer Gardens? What actual changes have you made to align with the findings of the noise pollution study? Your official statement on the matter was vague.
Wow. So there's a lot there. I don't know if they mean a variance like concerts are allowed to go past. Okay, so I think there's a general noise ordinance thing in the city. So like how loud can you have a party in your own backyard for your 30th birthday, right? Like there's that. And then there's like how long can an amphitheater go? Well, if you're going to actually run a concert venue, you can't use the same rules on a concert venue that you use on parties in people's backyards. So that's the first simple answer. The second is, there's lots of planning and sound engineering and all the stuff that goes into building the amphitheater. And then there's, okay, we turned it on, so to speak. Now, how do we think about this thing that's actually going on? And those when, rather vague, right? Like we're a few weeks into this right now, and we're still finding out, like, oh, turns out if, under these atmospheric conditions, this happens, or, if the speakers are placed over here, this happens. And so, and also, it's true that like, there are things that are planned around the amphitheater right now that don't exist yet, like bunches of big buildings. Well, lots of big buildings are going to be really effective sound barriers, but not until they exist. So again, a lot of complexity here. So, we're in the beginning of a whole long shakedown period. I mean, back in the day, and I'm gonna date myself, but one of the things that you always got told about an engine was you had a break-in period. Like if you bought a new car, you had to like go drive it carefully for a while and like see and change the oil a few extra times and all this stuff. Well, we're sort of in the break-in period in the amphitheater, and that's just, you start a new thing, you're gonna find out new stuff. Like for example, we found out we don't have a parking problem. Maybe we would, nobody was sure we weren't. We really tried to make sure. But it's also true that I can virtually promise you that there will be some shifts in parking policy over time as we learn. Because just to say that we didn't have a crisis doesn't mean we can't figure out things that are better. There's a whole, sorry to get into this geeky conversation about parking, but like there's a whole conversation about like underutilized spaces where people could park behind buildings where people are doing 9-to-5 jobs, and how do we harness that, and how do we enable the people who own those parking spaces to get some shared revenue in the process, but also activate them for users of things like the amphitheater. Well, that's an exciting conversation. But we're not going to finish it some Tuesday, and we're certainly not going to finish talking about the amphitheater next Tuesday either.
I'm sure we're not even done talking about it today, but it is time. It's time now for us to take another break. When we return, we'll be taking more questions from the public.
It's morning in Grand Rapids. Do you know what's going on in your city? Stay informed about what's happening in your community with The Rapidian, your source for hyperlocal news and information. The Rapidian is a community-focused news source powered by local residents like you. Our volunteer writers and reporters create content that hits close to home about topics like local government, business, schools, events, and people. The Rapidian goes beyond the headlines to provide in-depth coverage of issues that affect Grand Rapids directly, so you can stay in the know. We aim to uplift the community by sharing positive, inspiring stories of growth, progress, and neighborhood pride. The Rapidian is your neighborhood newspaper for the digital age. Follow us on our website and social media to stay connected to your community. This is The Rapidian.
Welcome back to City Connection. We're joined here by Mayor David LaGrand and DGRI Communications Director Bill Kirk, taking questions from the public. This question comes from Reddit. We got to get through all 7 of these before
All right.
in 10 minutes. So the city, DGRI, and the County Parks Department has built a lot of infrastructure in the last decade, with more under construction currently. However, this infrastructure remains fragmented. Will there be an emphasis on closing the often very small gaps in the network?
Yes. Next question.
I think I read this on Reddit earlier today, and I think they were referring to some of the river trail stuff.
Yeah.
So
we just did a groundbreaking at Ann Street to like close it, make some continuity. So
that's been one of the big focal points of that overall effort. That is not just DGRI, it's the city, it's all these other entities that were mentioned. We got a grant back in 2021, I want to say, from the federal government to really kickstart that Grand River Greenway development from basically, the goal is to go from Lowell to the lakeshore, but to keep it quick, the focus for a lot of those funds has been on those gaps, like where there are those critical gaps. The mayor just mentioned, from Leonard to Ann Street. Once you get to Riverside Park, it's great. You got a lot of connectivity to the White Pine Trail and to other places, but there was some of those missing pieces. So that's where a lot of those dollars have been invested in those missing pieces. There's certainly a long way to go on certain sections, but to the Redditor's comment, that is definitely like a priority of the overall investment. We're not done. We have more work to do, but a continuous trail that can be used by any type of user is the overall goal.
That being said, one of the things I've been saying recently about design principles in the city for things like bike lanes is it seems to me we want 4 characteristics. Continuity, consistency, so bike lane should look like a bike lane, should look like a bike lane. Should be as cheap as possible, and it should ideally be reversible. So you try bike lanes, and if they give you consequences you weren't anticipating, then you can back up. But one of my grumbling things I sometimes say is I don't want to be a city where we treat bikes as though they're 16th century fur trappers, where they have to portage their bike all the time. So like, here's two blocks of bike lane, now the bike lane went away.
Right.
Like, that's not a system, right? That's virtue signaling. So if you actually want people to bike from point A to point B, you have to have a way for them to do the whole distance, not half the distance, not 2 blocks here, 2 blocks here, 2 blocks here. So continuity is really important, and I think that's something we can do better.
Another question from Reddit, part 2 of the previous question, but also this infrastructure, especially on the county side, has been largely about building recreational trails rather than connectivity, such as the Grand River Greenway North Route versus the Grand River Greenway South Route, aka Coldbrook Cut, which would connect far more people to far more things. How can the city bring emphasis to how many people are served by a process rather than what is easiest to build?
Bingo. I mean, that's sort of, to sort of riff on what I just finished saying, one of the things I also really want to do as we do these projects, I think it's critical. We do traffic counts all the time, but when we say traffic counts, we mean car counts. We should be doing cyclist counts so that when we have an area and we're like, what if we do this? We can find out if there are more cyclists. Also, we could start doing real pedestrian counts. And I said this during our break to you, but one of the things that I think your viewers should know is, like, I love that things are only good if they're good for people. And how many people is it good for? That is totally the metric we should be using when we're doing city planning. So one of my metrics for downtown and health is how many people are on the sidewalks, how many people are out there. And if the answer is not many, then you've got something that people don't really seem to be consuming in the way that you would hope people would consume. So, if you look at a city that you're like, wow, this city's awesome, one of the characteristics that goes along with that is a lot of pedestrian activity. And so I think pedestrians are sort of our canary in the coal mine. So building things that pedestrians will find not threatening will make people feel more like they're willing to walk somewhere. And you don't get in this trap of thinking that something is desirable because there haven't been, for example, accidents. Because by that metric, 28th Street looks like a great place to go for a walk, because we probably haven't had any pedestrian accidents on 28th Street recently. That's because no one in their right mind would walk on 28th Street. Right? That doesn't make it pedestrian heaven. That means pedestrian. We hardly ever have pedestrian incidents on the 96. Very rare. Doesn't mean it's a great place to go for a walk.
No good crosswalks there. Yeah. One thing I'll add to that, because they did mention the cold brick cut, which I think is a great idea. And I talked about the federal funding that's going towards the Grand River Greenway. That had a clock on it. We had to spend all that money by the end of 2026. So those funds had to go to projects that were kind of ready to go. But ideas like the cold brick cut, and then there's work going on the Oxford Trail that connects into the Roosevelt Park and Black Hills neighborhood. There's extensions being studied from those connections that can get further into the southeast side along Plaster Creek and Silver Creek. So that's being talked about, that's being planned. There are public engagement opportunities around those efforts too. But that's kind of like the next phase of connecting, the Grand River Greenway projects to the neighborhoods. So it's not just this path that runs along a river corridor. There's meaningful connections from the neighborhoods as well.
If people want to follow this process,
Yeah.
what's a good...
If you go to grandriver.network, you can track on all these projects up and down the Greenway into the neighborhoods and throughout the county.
Cool. Another question from Reddit. Reading the 21st Century Mobility Strategy document, there are many highly desirable goals: WRT safety, active transportation, and general mode shift away from private automobiles. But car-centric design is very ingrained in ideas of prosperity and economic health for many Americans. What modeling has the city already done on the various economic dimensions of these changes? How will it affect the budget of the city, the budget of our households, and the activity for local businesses? How will the city track and study the economic outcomes of our mobility decisions to prove the value of the changes and convince our community to commit to continue on this path toward a safer, more active, more mobile city?
This is right in the mayor's strike zone, so I'm just going to sit back and drink my water.
Yeah. So the answer is, when you have something like this and you want to, again, one of my jokes often is, we're all descended from the person that didn't go out of the cave when somebody said, "What's that noise outside?" We're all sort of change averse because we don't want to have something disastrous happen, right? So when you're talking about moves towards something that a lot of urban planners say is better, well, one thing you can do is go look other places. And so I actually just took a team up to Halifax, Nova Scotia to look at what's going on there, because they have a lot more pedestrian activity habits there, and you can see the economic prosperity that brings. If you're geekier and you want to see it, you can read studies about this. But there are all kinds of, again, one of the things folks in Grand Rapids, I think, have to do is get out more often. If you go to Europe, there are towns all over the place that have but they call it 20 is plenty, a vision of in the city limits, nothing goes more than 20 miles an hour. Well, they've seen the benefits from that, because it's not just your perception of safety is important, right? If you want to get somebody to go out and walk somewhere. You don't want to say, hey, take a chance on seeing what happens to you. You want people to feel like they're really comfortable doing that. Well, we all know what feels comfortable and what doesn't feel comfortable. I don't go for for walks on the side of 55-mile-an-hour roads if there's a really crummy side of the road, right? Like, I want a nice shoulder, or ideally I don't want to be walking along a 55-mile-an-hour road. Well, I get nervous when cars around me are going speeds that I can't react to. And so generally one of the things that other cities have seen is if you slow things down. Now the other thing is the phrase "smell the coffee." Like, it turns out, imagine if you're driving by a bakery and you they could have the coolest thing baking right now. You're going to smell it if you're in this sealed metal unit that's going by it. Whereas if you're out and about, there's a reason people consume more local economy things if they're walking or biking, because they experience them. Now, and they can stop their trip a lot easier, right? You know, my feet take 0 parking spaces. Now the other part of this is flipping on its head that idea that a car equals prosperity, which is why I kind of said earlier, like, cars equal a $10,000 commitment of your money every year that you could be putting to something else. So I tend to think exactly the opposite. And so, like, just the drumbeat of pointing out, like, $10,000 per car. Like, that's a lot of money, unless you're Bill Gates. Like, for anybody sub-heart surgeon level, like, 10 grand is still real money. Like, if you came along, if I came to Bill and said, hey, Bill, we want a $10,000 raise next year, he'd be happy.
Take it.
Right? Like, that would come up in conversation at dinner tonight. Like, you have to be really rich to not care about $10,000 a year.
Yep.
I think we've got time for one more question. What is the plan for affordable housing? There seems to be a divide between higher and lower class, with higher class being able to afford housing, lower income getting vouchers. What about middle to lower middle income households? Rent especially seems to be a huge issue.
Great question. First of all, the end sentence there is right. When we talk about affordable housing, I often say we can talk about whether it's affordable to buy a house, but where the rubber meets the road for so many people living here in Grand Rapids, the question is, how much does it cost me to rent an apartment X, Y, or Z? Now, I think so. And yes, they also reference what we sometimes call the missing middle. So giving somebody a Section 8 housing voucher gives them essentially free housing, and then wealthy people can afford housing, and then you have this people in the middle, right? And so. Again, we could talk a whole show about this, but very quickly, we need to make it cheaper to build things. We need to lower some of the costs, some of the regulatory costs we put on rental properties generally, and we just need to build a lot more stuff, because as you build more things, think about a new car versus a used car. Lots of people get used cars because new cars are expensive. So as we build things, we also are going to have things getting older and older and older, and those older and older things are more affordable. My house is 120 years old. It's a lot more affordable than if I were to try to build that house right now. So the beautiful thing cities have is a lot of infrastructure, which is actually getting older and hence cheaper every year. So so we have to keep priming the pump. We have to keep building more things. And there's Jerusalem Dempsis. If anybody wants to go read somebody who's talking intelligently about this, she's a great columnist, writes about this stuff. You can buy her book on Amazon. But there's so much complexity in the housing conversation. So to say what is the plan? Well, that's sort of a monolithic word. We have to have 20 really good ideas, and to get those 20 really good ideas, we have to probably have 90 bad ideas to get the 20 good ones. So it's an issue that I think everybody should be urgent about, everybody should be thinking about, everybody should be educating themselves about, and everyone should be considering taking action on, because this is not something that is somebody else's problem. If you have a garage in your backyard and you live in the city of Grand Rapids, you can make housing. You can convert your garage. I'm doing it right now. I've got contractors in my backyard pouring the new floor in my garage because we're converting it to housing space. So if you want, and it's going to be, it will be affordable because it's a way cheaper way to make housing, to start with something that's already there and convert it. And so accessory dwelling units, we've talked about this before on the show, but like, if you're worried about housing, make your backyard, think of it as like being a foster parent or like taking on an exchange student. Like, you can have a nice renter in your backyard, and I can't guarantee you that will make your life better, but 99 times out of 100, that renter in your backyard will make your life better. They will be somebody you become friends with, you bond with, you build community with. We all live in cities because we like people, right? So the opportunities to meet more people, like more people, build more community, that's a real housing value. So take action. Don't wait for other people to do it.
Thank you. And with
That's my
that,
sermon.
I believe that is all the time that we have today. So thank you to both of our guests.
Thanks for having
For
me.
sharing your insight and giving us some information on what's going on in downtown.
Right on.
And thank you to all of you for tuning in and sending in your questions. Don't forget, you can always watch rebroadcasts throughout the month of July on cable GRTV's Channel 25 or the GRTV YouTube page. See you next month, Grand Rapids.
The Grand Rapids Community Media Center is committed to creating a diverse and inclusive environment for all community members. It is a place where community voices are heard, valued, and lifted through media. We seek to provide area residents with a platform to participate in free speech, be engaged with the community, and share their diverse voices. As a multimedia platform organization, we provide and support a variety of community resources, including our radio station, WYCE 88.1 FM, our TV station, GRTV, our hyper-local news program, the Rapidian, web services, and our historic theater, Wealthy Theater.
WYCE is West Michigan's only community radio station that is listener-supported and volunteer-powered. WYCE uses local voices to help listeners discover and celebrate different services, cultures, and events. What I really like about programming music in WYCE is I get to not only interact with listeners and local musicians, but I get to put together a musical collage every week and give it away to the universe. As a volunteer programmer, you get the training on how to use equipment, how to access music from the library, and how to put together a great show that showcases local and national artists and still has your creativity included.
The Web Services Department helps West Michigan nonprofits connect, learn, create, and share through locally built and accessible websites. We help nonprofits strengthen their online presence by developing one-of-a-kind websites tailored to their specific needs. The Web Services team can take care of all the technical needs of getting a new site up and running, including website hosting, domain name registration, theme development, and page layout. Websites are built with accessibility and responsiveness in mind, making sure our projects are available on any screen and accessible to people of all abilities. We are passionate about helping organizations in the nonprofit sector effectively communicate their stories online, promoting equity and media access with our affordable services.
Wealthy Theater is a historic theater on the southeast side of Grand Rapids. It was built in 1911, and today it stands as a performing arts center, historic cinema, and community venue. We provide a space for community connection, where community members can get together, enjoy different shows and different events. From concerts to comedy, musicals, theater, film screenings, you name it. Anybody from the community can sign up to be a member and rent one of our spaces to host their event. We have a staff here at the theater that helps make all the events here happen, as well as a great community of volunteers. The goal is to bring the community together, bring audiences together, artists together, create experiences where those two can connect. Whether you're an audience member who wants to come see a show, or you're somebody who wants to put on a show, Wealthy Theater is a space for you.
The Rapidian is a hyper-local news source powered by, for, and of the people of Grand Rapids, Michigan. We launched in 2009 using funds from local organizations and generous donors, and this community-driven platform empowers residents to share their stories, post articles, and keep track of local events and issues. By emphasizing citizen journalism, the Rapidian provides a unique grassroots perspective and a vital news service for the residents of Grand Rapids. In 2023, we are relaunching the Rapidian with the Grand Rapids Documenters program, where we train and pay local citizens to cover public meetings, empowering residents with the tools and resources to strengthen the news media landscape in Grand Rapids and become more civically engaged.
GRTV airs public access television programming made by and for the Grand Rapids community, amplifying their voices to support a diverse and vibrant democracy. We provide the tools, training, and broadcast platform for free speech. Community members can take classes on video and production features, borrow professional equipment, editing software, and use of our studio facilities to create their own content. We help community members connect, learn, create, and share.